We said we're not going to make that same mistake again. We want to know a better idea what this tax reform package is going to look like before we move ahead with the budget. We think, again, it's going to be good. The framework is good, and that actually families are going to be able to keep more of their money. So time to move forward, time to get it done.
All right, here is what Democratic Senator Chuck Schumer, the Senate Minority Leader, says. It seems that President Trump and Republicans have designed their plan to be cheered in the country clubs and the corporate boardrooms. He went on to call it on the Senate floor wealth fair. Not welfare, wealth fair. Your response?
No, come on. It's about letting families keep increasing, doubling the standard deduction, lowering the rates, only having 3 brackets, bringing down the corporate rate, which we know produces economic growth, which we know helps every single family across this country. So we had just some basic concepts. Make sure families get to keep more of their money and construct a tax code that's going to produce growth. Again, we think this outline, this framework does that. That's why we're moving forward. The Democrats are going to say what they're going to say. They always do. Let's cut taxes for American families. Let's grow our economy so we can have the kind of opportunity that we need in this great country.
What is your perception about how this will impact the debt and deficit as a package, based on what you know now?
Yeah, you have to get growth. Think about the last 10 years. We were bumping along at about a percent and a half growth rate, particularly during the Obama years. The debt doubled during the Obama years. To deal with a debt of this magnitude, 20 trillion, you've got to get to 3.5, 4% annual growth rate. You cannot do that with our current tax code. So this is all about growth, which you have to have in order to deal with the debt of that size. So we think this is the right place to go. We think over time, when you get that kind of growth, you're going to get additional revenue to the Treasury, and you're going to be able to begin to deal with this huge debt burden we now face.
Well, you know, there are plenty of critics, some on the far right, some on the left, many of them, who say that when you give these tax cuts, they don't believe it's a proven formula to grow the economy, and that somehow that money's got to show up. They're also asking questions about which tax breaks are going to survive and which aren't. And now comes this business of lobbying, which is going to go hardcore on the Hill, something Americans by and large say they don't have a taste for. But who's going to ultimately win and lose, do you think?
Every time tax cuts are tried, they work. You, over time, get additional dollars to the Treasury because it spurs economic growth. We know this worked in the Kennedy years. We know this worked the last time we did it in the Reagan years. It will work again. It will unleash the dynamic components of the American economy and the entrepreneurs across this great country. That's what this is about. And then you have to do that to deal with the debt the size that we're talking about, a $20 trillion debt. This is the right way to go. We need to just get it done. And more importantly, or maybe most importantly, this is what we told the American people we were going to do last November. We told them we were going to cut their taxes. We told them we were going to get economic growth and job creation happening. So let's get done what we said we were going to do.
Well, we'll watch to see if you get bipartisan buy-in on that as well. Enjoy the day with your colleague returning there to the floor. Congressman Jim Jordan, always good to see you.
Thank you.
Keeping a close eye on it. When it happens, we'll bring it to you live, certainly. 20 past the hour now. Senate investigators calling on Facebook and other tech giants to testify. They want to know about Russia's attempt to influence the election through social media. How will they respond on that? Jason Chaffetz standing by next to answer those questions. Also,
plus, the former First Lady slamming women who voted for President Trump, saying, if you're a woman, you should have voted for Hillary Clinton, or you don't like yourself. Our panel is going to debate it.
We know why she lost. It's obvious. I looked at Hillary Clinton. She was a treasure trove. She was like a treasure box of negative Hillary information with arms and legs.
Right now, injured Congressman Steve Scalise is on his way to recovery. He is meeting with House Speaker Paul Ryan. He has tweeted, "I'm back," with a picture. As he returns to the Hill, he has been through grueling months since that attack, shooting at a congressional baseball practice months ago back in June. Several others involved there. He took the worst of it by far. There were others injured and who have continued to recover, including his security detail, brave Capitol Hill police officers who were out there, really put themselves on the line. They continue to recover as well. This is his first time back to the Hill. And as soon as that happens, we will keep an eye on him, and we'll get you there live.
Fox News confirming that you understand that, but when was the last time? What's the last time you talked to Steve, or what do you reflect on today?
Well, you know, LSU was playing BYU in a place that I went to, and Steve and I chatted about that. There was no way I was taking a bet because LSU was going to kill BYU, and they did. But he's in good spirits, and it is really, truly a remarkable story that what he and his family have gone through, the pain and the rehab and the surgeries, and you know, if not for the heroic effort by a couple of Capitol Hill police officers, you would have seen a lot more people shot and probably killed. But, you know, it is an amazing emotional moment for him to get together. And when he walks on that floor, there will be not a dry eye in the place.
Well, we are on standby for that, so please understand if the interruption comes. What do you think should happen to 25-year-old reality winner?
I think her reality should be behind bars for as long as possible. You can't unilaterally decide to make classified material not classified and just release it out. There are people's lives in danger. You're going to get people killed. And I wish there was more consistency from our government in prosecuting these types of cases. But she should not be released, and there is no way that she should be given this bail that she's trying to get. And I want to see her behind bars for as long as possible.
No, the reason why this is important is because if the Russians attempted or were successful hacking some of the databases for voting software suppliers, that's a big deal. We need to know about it. On the other hand, you've got members of Congress who want to talk to the tech giants and bring them before hearings on Capitol Hill. Now, President Trump's tweeting that, you know, social media is against him, and Mark Zuckerberg from Facebook fired back on this way. Campaign spent hundreds of millions advertising online to get their messages out even further. That's 1,000 times more than any problematic ads we've found. He continued. Trump says Facebook's against him. Liberals say we help Trump. Both sides are upset about ideas and content they don't like. That's what running a platform for all ideas looks like, end quote. How do we manage this for the next time?
Well, look, Mark Zuckerberg says that the Russians were not influential in the election, although he did take their money. And I think Congress, in a bipartisan way, needs to look at that same documentation and try to figure out who might have been trying to manipulate the election, particularly from outside of our country, and make some sort of determination. You know, when they put up ads online, you don't have the same disclosure requirements that you do if you put them in other types of venues. And so Congress is going to be looking at this, and not just Facebook. I think you're going to see Google and others called up before Capitol Hill over the next 12 months.
Well, I think it's Google and really Twitter in addition to Facebook, and Senate investigators want to know about all that. Where does this go, though? How are we? Again, it's a tough thing to manage, and I don't know whether it's dictated out of Washington or not.
Well, again, I think disclosure is going to be one of the themes that you see. I mean, you got Senator Langford, who's very savvy on these, is savvy on this issue, who's been looking at this. It is about disclosure, and you do want to know what's going on with these foreign entities and their ability to come in and influence an election, or at least try to influence an election. Zuckerberg saying it was minuscule compared to everything else, but Senate's got to look at that, and I think the House should look at it as well.
It's very interesting considering how many people are online every day, and social media is such a big part of so many lives now. So we will follow it with your help. Thank you, Jason, for coming back today. Jason Chaffetz there.
Thanks, Bill.
You bet. Shannon, what's next?
Well, House Majority Leader, actually the House Whip, Steve Scalise, back to work today. He has just wrapped up a meeting with Speaker Paul Ryan. We are told he may be heading to the House floor. We do expect him to speak there this morning. Can't imagine what that's going to be like, but we're going to take you there live as that happens. Plus, President Trump pushing his ambitious agenda with a 1-2 punch, touting his tax reform plan and saying a health care deal will be reached within months. Will he have the votes that have eluded him so far? We're going to talk to White House Legislative Affairs Director next.
We're doing our job here in the House, and we're rooting for our friends in the Senate to get this stuff done. We're really disappointed in health care, but we still got a chance of getting a lot of these big things done.
Trump voicing optimism on health care reform, saying he will have a bill on his desk in a matter of months. From the White House Legislative Director Mark Schwartz in our bureau in Washington. Sir, thank you for coming back to America's Newsroom. I want to put this in simple language. Why did he deliver the comments he has about health care being revived?
Well, Bill, I think sometimes politicians in Washington are a little bit slow hearing the cry of the American people, and they've cried out for several years about the need to repeal Obamacare. They did in 2010, electing Republicans to the House, 2014, electing them to the Senate, and now giving us the White House. They want us to deliver on this. The president is committed to repealing Obamacare. Where we are right now is that several senators feel like we ran out of time. They've coalesced around the Graham-Cassidy concept of taking Washington out of the picture and putting the dollars back at the states, giving them flexibility to run plans that's best for their constituents. But we now have run out of time on that. We think we have the votes. It'll likely, though, be part of a budget reconciliation early next year. And so the president is excited that we're agreeing on a concept. Now we just need a little bit more time to deliver on it.
He thinks he can get Rand Paul to vote for this, right? I mean, he's pretty much said that. We played that earlier today. And Graham and Cassidy will be at the White House, I believe, in about an hour today. But 30 minutes ago, Rand Paul told Shannon this about those prospects.
The main thing I opposed in Graham-Cassidy was that they kept the Obamacare spending and just reshuffled it from Democrat states to Republican states. That was not an answer, and it's sort of petty partisanship, and it was big government, and it was fake repeal. But yes, there are parts that we could vote on, and I've met with people, the White House and the Senate leadership, and said, I'm ready to vote today if they'll put forward something that is simply a repeal bill.
Okay, now, that doesn't sound like a yes. There are 10 caveats in that answer right there. So what don't we get?
Okay, we're working with Rand on several things. One is an associated health care plan is something he's advocated legislatively that we think we can do from the executive branch. We're still optimistic in earning Rand's support. We're disappointed we couldn't get it this time. We think when you're talking about one of the biggest entitlement reforms in generations, actually repealing the individual mandate and the employer mandate, and also very important to Senator Paul, he prides himself on being a pro-life senator. This was our best chance to actually deliver pro-life legislation that ensured taxpayers were not funding abortion, and the dollars would have been provided through the states to do that. So we're very disappointed that Rand wasn't supportive this go round. But the process argument, I think, is really one that's been Senator McCain and Senator Murkowski have said with a different process they could get supportive. So I think that our focus is really looking to get the 50 votes that's more likely to include McCain, Murkowski, and we'll see what others we can earn as we move forward.
So you do the math and we'll try and follow along. But the point of this is that healthcare reform is not dead. That's the message the president wants to deliver on that, and we'll see whether or not he's right. Now, on tax cuts, quickly here, Paul Ryan told Sean Hannity this last night about the plan that was made public yesterday.
This is the kind of plan that Donald Trump ran on, that House Republicans ran on, and yes, we're going to get this done. This is about economic growth. It's about bigger paychecks. It's about more jobs. It's about a fairness system in our tax code. So we're really excited about this. That's why we spent all this time working with the president and, yes, working with the Senate and the House to make sure we're on the same page so we work off this common outline, this common framework to go from here to get this done.
So that was from last night. Wall Street Journal opinion page, final line reads like this. The challenge now is to sell it better than health reform, resist the special pleaders, and pass it by the end of the year. Can you complete all three?
Bill, that is our ambition. That's our goal. We need to do it by the end of the year. The American people have suffered for too long. The last 8 years, we had 1.8% average growth. That is the worst growth of any president since the Depression and Herbert Hoover. The American economy has suffered for far too long. American families have hurt. We need to reform our tax code so that we can keep jobs here in America. Our corporate tax structure is so outdated that you have seen time and again companies moving their manufacturing plants overseas because of a different tax structure. We need to bring those jobs back, and it's about time that we start turning the economy and getting growth injected into it.
By the end of the year? Yes or
Bill,
no?
We plan to get it done by the end of the year.
You come back anytime, okay? We're short on time today. A lot of breaking news, you bet. Mark Short there live in our Washington Bureau. Thank you.
And we continue to await the arrival of injured and now recovering Congressman Steve Scalise on the House floor. Our own Mike Emanuel is there on Capitol Hill watching and waiting as we do. Let's check in with him to see what he knows as we await this timing. It's a big day, Mike.
Well, absolutely, Shannon. Good morning to you. We got a tip, and so we've been here in Statuary Hall waiting for his joyous return to Capitol Hill 3.5 months after he was shot at that congressional baseball practice. A lot of smiles here. A lot of lawmakers are wondering what all the buzz is, and when they've been told that it's Scalise returning to the House chamber, I saw Congressman John Lewis, the civil rights icon, his face lit up and said, "Oh, that's wonderful." And so I doubt there will be a dry eye in the House chamber when Scalise addresses the House chamber a short time from now. They're expecting some votes. We ran into House Speaker Paul Ryan a short time ago, and he had just met with Mr. Scalise, and he seemed overcome with emotion. They were worried that their dear friend was going to die after that shooting incident at the baseball practice. And so it's been a very long road for him, a lot of infections, a lot of medical procedures. Scalise has described it as basically doctors had to put him back together like Humpty Dumpty. He told 60 Minutes that they had to put steel plates in to reinforce the shattered bones from that one gunshot to the left hip. And so a triumphant return to Capitol Hill 3.5 months after that very tragic incident, but a lot of smiles here, anticipating hearing from him and seeing him and perhaps shaking his hand or giving him a hug. A lot of folks saying that who have met with him say that he is thrilled to be back, very excited, and we had that picture of him out on the balcony tweeting that "I'm back." And so a great anticipation here for Steve Scalise's return to the U.S. House this morning. Shannon?
Yeah, and whatever the gunman who is now dead intended, all of his targets survived, and they have come through this in a way that has built so much goodwill for the police officers, for the others who were wounded, for the heroes who showed up that day, and truly saved Steve Scalise's life. And now, as you said, when he enters in, probably he and Congressman Lewis haven't voted alike on a lot of important things, but to hear that Congressman Lewis is across the aisle, and yet, as everyone else will be there today, praising Steve Scalise, his fight to recover, whatever that gunman intended, he's not going to get that today, Mike.
No question about it, Shannon. As a person of faith, obviously, a lot of people have been praying for Steve Scalise. He has responded to those prayers. A lot of prayers have been answered by his return here to Capitol Hill. A lot of people didn't think it was going to happen. Remember the doctor at MedStar Washington saying that death was imminent when he arrived at the hospital 3.5 months ago. There were infections, and there were concerns that those infections could lead to potentially death. And so a young guy with a young family, somebody who is known for his smile here on Capitol Hill for Democrats and Republicans. I can't tell you how many times I've seen Steve Scalise come bouncing through here with a big smile on his face, greeting all that he meets. And so a joyous day here on Capitol Hill, Shannon.
All right, Mike Emanuel, our chief congressional correspondent. We will check back with you and keep watch on that. Thank you so much, Mike.
Just imagine the rehab that he's gone through trying to walk again.
Tough.
And then, wow, yeah, tough indeed. Apparently, he did an interview this week with 60 Minutes Alaire on Sunday night, and he said about Louisiana, "I can tell you I cannot wait till the day that I get back home." In a way, he's coming home today, so we're going to see him live in a moment here on the floor of the House. So
we will.
Don't move. In a moment here, the former First Lady Michelle Obama speaking out about voters in last year's election. What she is saying about women who voted for President Trump. Kind of surprising on this. And we're going to debate that. Could she be overlooking some of the real reasons for the outcome of what we watched last November? That's next.
She has no self-awareness. Maybe she needs a class or something that we can send her to, because there's no accountability, and it reinforces